You'll have to forgive me, I keep walking backwards and forwards. I just like to walk, okay, try and get my steps in. I've been doing it for a long time, as you can tell by my picture. We didn't have coloured cameras back when I first started, so that's the reason why it's in black and white. But I've been doing it for quite some time. As a matter of interest, who here in the room is retired? Can we have a show of hands of people who are retired? Wow, you are the most luckiest people in the room. Most luckiest people in the room. Well done. Today's talk we're talking about is around sickness policies and capabilities. So those wonderful, lucky, retired individuals within the room, by all means, go and get a coffee. So the rest of you, stay put. Okay. I was diagnosed with a melanoma back in September 2023. Like most people, you end up pointing to it. Mine is the right eye. I've never met anyone yet that goes like that. So I'm hoping that I'll never meet anyone that goes like that either. So, but as a matter of interest, how many people in here, if you would like to indicate, you don't have to indicate, but how many people in here have got a melanoma, would you like to point to it? There we are, lovely. It's always nice to point to it, so there we are. Thank you very much. So I'm being treated up at Liverpool. Fantastic place, awesome place. And is there anyone else here, part of the Liverpool crew? Anyone else going to Liverpool? Hooray! Good stuff. Fantastic. Have we got anyone from the Sheffield posse here? Anyone? Whoop. Okay, thank you. And anyone here from the Moorfields group? Hey, Moorfields are in the house. There we are. Superb. Great, that is. They're fantastic places, aren't they? Fantastic places. The problem being is they're miles away from where you live, don't they? Yeah. Liverpool is miles away from where I live because I live in a small little fishing village down in South Devon. So to travel, you can tell the people from Devon in here, can't you? Yeah. So yeah, we have to travel up from South Devon to Liverpool. But do you know what? Like Jackie said, I will go anywhere to get the treatment that I need, and I know many, looking around the room, many of you would do too. So yes, I'm going to come on to your travelling shortly. So before we start, okay, this is where we are. I think it's important to remember something. Now, hopefully you'll be able to see that, because a lot of the slides we've had have been quite small, but I did try and make it as large as possible. I want to say to you, you are all important. Everyone in this room is important, okay? David, you are important, okay? Yes. You are all loved in this room. Each and every one of you is loved in this room. Sally, you are loved. I've got to say that because she's my wife. So you are all valued. You are all valued in this room because, let's face it, look around the room, look how many people are here. You know, it's an extremely rare cancer, and look how we've all come together. That just shows the value of what Ocular Melanoma UK really brings. And that just goes to show that actually you're not alone, okay? Jackie, Natalie, Nikki, Joe, Elaine, you're not alone, okay? More importantly, you are all totally awesome, all right? So don't let anyone ever tell you, oh, well, you know, you've got it, but so what, all right? You are all awesome. So I wanted to bring this up. For those people in the room that are employed, okay, as when you phone your line manager, some people say to me, Paul, this is how I feel line manager kind of treats me on the phone, all right? Get well soon from the illness you are faking. They're not really bothered about what's happening with you. All they're bothered about is the work, okay? And that's why sickness policies are really important, because sickness policies make sure that you and everyone else within the workforce are supported. I've never come across yet a sickness policy that turns around and says, if you're sick, sack them. That's not the case. It's about supporting you. However, some line managers, sadly, do forget their responsibilities. And I'm going to give you the knowledge and skills today to remind them of that. So, things you might want to consider, things you might want to know. First of all, if you're employed, and that's employed within an employer organisation, whatever it may be, but not necessarily self-employed. I'm looking at the people that are employed with organisations. You will have what is known as a contract of employment. It might be known as a statement of particulars, okay? But there will be a contract of employment. And in that contract, it will say that you are employed to do whatever role it might be, whether that be a brain surgeon, whether that be the local cleaner, whether that be whatever it is. It will say in the contract that you are employed between this time and that time. It will also give a location of where you are employed. So you may be employed at one place, or you may be employed across a geography, what we like to call in the business as a cluster contract. I don't really like them. But it also states within there what entitlements you get. Now, entitlements might be under sickness, so what you're entitled to in terms of sickness, what you're entitled to in terms of annual leave, and whether you can actually get unpaid leave as well. What often accompanies a contract of employment is a staff handbook. And I want everyone in the room, as when you go back to home or go back to work, I'd like you to ask for a copy of the contract of employment. You have a right to a copy, okay? And you know what? If you haven't got one, then you want to be saying to them, I'm due one. Now, certain points throughout my presentation, I will be saying, warning, law input, okay? And that's so I can bring up certain legislation. So I'm giving you a warning. There is a law input here. So the Employment Rights Act, Section 1, 1996 states that every individual employed after 8 weeks should have their contract of employment. So if you've been employed for over 8 weeks and you have not got a copy of your contract of employment, they're in breach of employment law. Oh dear. Okay, so make sure that you've got one. Number 2, ask for a copy of your employer's sickness policy. Now this is gold dust. It's really, really important that you do get a copy of the sickness policy, because that there is the go-to item. It will say what the employer will do for you, what the employer expects from you to do for them, and what the parameters are. It will also explain a step-by-step guide to line managers of how they should support a person who is triggering the sickness policy. Really, really important. So by having a hymn sheet, as in the sickness policy, you'll be able to make sure that you work within the parameters. And this is the golden nugget. This is the golden nugget, because a lot of line managers say, well, you're now on sick and therefore there's a policy that says you've got to do X, Y, and Z. And then you can say, well, I've got a copy of the employment policy or a copy of the sickness policy. It also says that you have to do things too. Yes. So make sure you get a copy of it. Be clear about the amount of time you can have sick. Now, this is a strange one. You would think that across the whole of the UK, the time would be the same. However, it differs from one employer to another. Some might turn around and say, you only get 4 weeks sick. Some employers turn around and say, you get 6 months full pay on sick and 6 months half pay on sick. Some employers turn around and say, we don't pay sickness. Okay, you've got to have statutory sick pay and you've got to claim it. Okay? So it's important to understand what entitlement you are allowed, because that will gauge your recovery. Because let's face it, everything is governed on financial income, isn't it? The world revolves around funding. If you're lucky enough to have a good employer whereby they've got a good sickness policy in, and that's been negotiated on, then you will probably have 6 months full pay, 6 months half pay. And then there are discussions then. That gives you a year's worth of freedom to think, you know what? I can focus on the important bit. Okay? It's really, 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 really important that you get as much evidence from your medical practitioners as possible in terms of your condition. I can't stress this enough. The amount of hearings I've been to, you know, where we've sat down and we've said to the court, look, you know, this individual's gone through an absolute dreadful situation. And they say, well, where's the evidence? Well, look at them. You know, is that not enough evidence? We've got a saying within employment law and stuff like that. If it's not written down, it never happened. Okay? And you probably hear that a lot. If it's not written down, it never happened. And therefore, my advice, and any advice, would be make sure you get as much evidence as possible from your practitioner, from your consultant. But equally, if you're lucky enough with your employer, they've got an occupational health department, get engaged with them. Get an appointment with them. Get them to register what their findings are, because that all aids you for things that happen in the future. I've got to put on there access to work. Does anyone know what access to work is? Well, I know you would do, Jackie. So, Barbara, you obviously know as well, don't you? Yeah? And that just goes to show the benefit of having advocates, because the two advocates in the room know about it. So, well done you. But access to work is a government-led scheme whereby you, as an individual that may need requirements or reasonable adjustments, we'll come on to that in a minute, might need some support. But equally, you work with the employer. Some employers are a little bit more savvy with it, and they'll say, well, you go away and do it, and then we'll see whether we can meet it. But it is there, and it's there for everyone from day one. Okay? Now, of course, I've got to say this, being an active trade unionist, but if you're a member of a trade union, get in touch with your local branch. Okay? That's what they're there for. You pay your subs, you go see them, and they do the fantastic job in getting you the support and representation you quite rightly deserve. If you're not a member of a trade union, consider joining one. Because there's many benefits to being a member of a trade union. Free legal advice, insurances, personal representation. They usually have a charity attached to them that offers some support during financial difficulties. The organisation I belong to even has its own holiday camp in North Devon. Oh, you didn't know that, did you? Oh. So yes, there are lots of advantages to joining a trade union. And you can find out how to join a trade union by visiting the TUC website, okay, Trade Union Congress website, and there'll be a link on there later on. Okie dokie then. So yes, your manager knows that you're awesome, but get back to work, okay? This is what we find a lot. Understanding the sickness process. Now, you don't have to put your hands up, but is it fair to say that some people in the room are currently off sick? Maybe, maybe not. You probably have been off sick at some stage, all right? And you would have gone and triggered what is known as a sickness policy. And this is usually done through what they call within HR realms as management intervention, or MIPS. Management intervention points. So you get a certain amount of points, and when you trigger those points, computer says you need to have a word with them, okay, because they're taking too much time off. Sickness policy is there, right? So it's usually led by the line manager. The line manager will give you a call and say, hello, just like they did. Hope you're getting better from the illness you're faking, all right, when you're coming back. Their main mission is about getting you back into the workplace. Because while you're gone, everyone else is having to pick up that work. And that's a horrible thing to say to you, but that's reality. And that's what I deal with. I don't wrap it up in cotton wool. I make it as blunt as possible, because at least then, if you're in possession of the full facts, you know exactly where you're going with it. They will want to understand when you are likely to come back to work. Now that's like saying to you, how long is a piece of string? Isn't it? When is your cancer going to disappear and you can come back to work? I don't know. I'm still coming to terms with it. So they don't get it. The one thing I will say to you is, do not be pressured. Never ever be pressured going back to work. Take the time. It's your time. if you imagine work, if you imagine this is your life, the lifespan, okay? This is your lifespan. Work is just a fragment of that, yeah? That's all it is, because you've got this. So don't let that little bit there ruin the rest of this. What will happen, however, is you will be placed onto attendance support process. What does that mean, Paul? I can hear you all asking in your minds. Well, that is to ensure that you are abiding by the employer's processes. They will turn around and say, we're going to put you on an action plan. So therefore, you're going to be invited to a meeting. Now, if you're at home and you're sick, can you realistically go into work to go to a meeting? No. If you were in hospital, would you realistically leave the hospital to go to an attendance support meeting at work? No. But work will say you've got to attend an ASM, attendance support meeting. And that's the first run of the ladder when we're talking about an escalation process. An ASM, attendance support meeting, okay, or attendance support action plan, is the first step of the ladder. It's an informal process. Now, I want you to remember that word, informal. It's an informal process. The next one would be a stage one. So if you get to stage one, you've only got two things to worry about. One is, do I stay at stage one or do I go back down to informal? Okay? If you go back down to informal, you've got nothing to worry about. But if you stay at stage one, then you've got two things to worry about. Two things to worry about is, am I going to go to stage two? Or am I going to stay at stage one? If you stay at stage one, you've got nothing to worry about. If you go to stage two, you've got two things to worry about. If you're at stage two, you've got two things to worry about. Do I go to a stage three, or do I stay at stage two? If you stay at stage two, you've got nothing to worry about. If you go to a stage three, you've got something to worry about. Two things to worry about. And that is, am I going to have a job, or are they going to keep me? Because when you get to stage three, that's when they're looking to exit you from the organisation. So they are the rungs of the ladder. Informal, stage one formal, stage two, stage three. Usually at stage three, that's where they're looking at kicking you out the door. Okay? There's a long process to get there. We'll help you, don't worry. Line managers and employees often use emotional tactics. Often use that. You know, the department's really struggling. Your mates are really struggling. They can't cope without you. Everyone knows that you're totally awesome. We can't continue without you. They might turn around and say, actually, you know that promotion you wanted? It's not looking like you now because you haven't been in the workplace. You're becoming de-skilled. That's not often a good one. You're becoming de-skilled. You're not current. Or they may turn around and say, well, it's going to affect your pay. That's emotional pressure being placed on you to come back to the workplace. And what I would say is, don't rush back. However, if you are pressured to go against the advice, never return until you're well enough. And the reason for that is because you remember earlier on I went to mention about the management intervention points. So there's certain scores that HR departments use. And that will be contained within the sickness policy. They may turn around to you and say, you're entitled to 4 periods of sickness or to a maximum of 28 days. So I've had 1 day off because I've had the sniffles and I go back. I've had 2 days off. Okay, it's got an ingrown toenail. I've had 3 days off because I've had a migraine, it just won't go away. And then I've got this, and I have 2 weeks off. But then I try and rush back to work because I've got emotional pressure from the managers. But then I have 2 days off because I've got sniffles again. So if you rush back, they'll just it doesn't matter how long you're off for, they'll consider that as one period of sickness, and that will impact on your ability, because once you trigger those management intervention points, you're then on the ladder. Ultimately, if you are triggered, it may well lead to a meeting, and the meeting is, well, you're taking too much time sick, you're no good for the organisation, you're too sick, all right, and that may well lead to what we'll consider as a disciplinary meeting. I don't want you to go to those meetings alone. Remember what I said? If it's not written down, it never took place. So always take someone with you. Warning, there's a bit of legal bit here. Employment Relations Act, Section 10, 1999 says you're entitled to take a workplace representative or a trade union official. Okay? So always take someone with you, never go alone. Right. Anyone know this chap? Works in the NHS. Name's Dr. Evil. So, yeah. This thing called the Equality Act. Has anyone ever heard of the Equality Act before? Yeah? Brilliant. Came in 2010. We had this thing before known as a Disability Discrimination Act, Sex Discrimination Act. There was a load of all these acts. And then they said, well, let's put them all in one together. We've got this nice big juicy thing called the Equality Act. And the Equality Act covers 9 protected characteristics. Does anyone know what they are? Deadly silence. That always happens to me, always happens. Well, I can tell you one. Disability. Disability falls within the Equality Act. Okay. But line managers will turn around and say, we're all treated equal. We're all equal. We're not really. We're not equal at all. So where do you fit in within the Equality Act? Now, I want to say to you, I'm not a clinician. You can tell that the way I'm talking. I'm not talking so fast like they do. So it's not my place to say whether, and give you a label, and I'm not giving you a label. All I'm telling you is the facts. And the facts say, warning, here's a law input. Under Section 6 of the Equality Act 2010, it says that you are likely to be considered as being disabled if you have a condition that has a substantial or long-term adverse impact on your normal day-to-day activities that you've had for 12 months or more, or likely to have for 12 months or more. Now, the word substantial, what does the word substantial mean, Paul? Well, if I said to you, the word substantial means more than a minor. So if you've got more than a minor impact on your normal day-to-day activities, and you've had it for 12 months or more, then you are likely to fall under the Equality Act as possibly having a disability. There's only one group of people that can say with any definitive clarity that you are disabled, and that is an employment tribunal judge. It's only them. Even your medical practitioners can't turn around and say you are disabled. It has to be an employment tribunal judge for clarity, legally. However, there are some impairments, some conditions that are automatically covered under the Equality Act. I wonder what they are. Well, one of them is cancer. So the fact that we are here for ocular melanoma, United Against Eye Cancer, and like I say, I'm not giving you a label, but it's fair to say that everyone in this room falls under the Equality Act of 2010. Okay? What's also important as well is, for those people in the room that don't have eye cancer, but care for people that do, that are their carers, are also covered under the Equality Act 2010. Because if you are a carer for someone who falls under the Equality Act, you assume their condition. Not saying that you've got it, what you're doing is you are caring for that individual. Because you're caring for that individual, you're protected under the rights of the Equality Act 2010. So the rights for those people that are deemed as considered being having a disability, you will also have their rights too. That's really powerful. That is really, really powerful for people. Remember that slide at the first? You're all important. You are all important. You're all valued. Reasonable adjustments. Now, under the Equality Act, reasonable adjustments. Have you ever heard that term before? Reasonable adjustments? Yeah? This is my mate, Mr. Bean. He went and got some reasonable adjustments. I don't know how well they're working, but he's got them. But reasonable adjustments can vary, can depend on each individual. And certainly within the organisations and employees that you are with, they have a duty to abide by the Equality Act. Now, some employers, if they are from a local authority, if they are from a public sector, there is a thing known as a public sector equality duty automatically placed on them to show preferential treatment to people that fall under the Equality Act. And by failing to show that preferential treatment, they are in breach of the Equality Act, and heavy penalties can be placed on them. But let's have a look at some of the reasonable adjustments. Physical modifications, installing ramps. That goes without saying, doesn't it? You know, for those visible kind of disabled individuals that are in mobility scooters and things like that, they're going to need ramps. Ergonomic furniture, ensuring accessible restrooms. Let's face it, we all need to have a rest. This is a good one. Flexible working. Ooh, I like that, Paul. Yeah. The amount of people I represent that say, I've got a condition, I fall into the Equality Act, but the employees turn around to me and said, if I want to have a flexible working, I've got to do a flexible working request, and it'll be considered like everyone else. The employer is missing the trick here, because what they're saying is flexible working arrangements should be covered under the Equality Act. It's powerful, that. Assistive technology. Now, some of the individuals I've been supporting have got a system called Dragon installed on their computers. So they can talk and it types it out for them. Now, for those people in the room that are partially sighted, you may notice it's difficult sometimes to text or type things. So how supportive would that be by having technology where you just talk and it types it out for you? Press send. Done. No spelling mistakes, already done. So there are measures out there that we can get. Training and support. Not necessarily training support for you, but training support for your colleagues. I represented one person that got epilepsy, real severe epilepsy, okay, and just used to go and have a major fit, okay, a grand mal fit. And people didn't get it. So what we did is we arranged for training for the whole department. So as and when this valued member of staff had a fit, everyone knew how to deal with it and best support the individual, but also restrict the impact on the business. Communication adjustments goes without saying. I don't know if any of you now, you know, following the journey you've been on, but whether you've got enlarged documents, you know, sent to you. You know, I've asked for enlarged documents, so when I get my BT bill, it comes in A3. You know what I mean? I'm like, you know, have a quick look on that. So, but they're all reasonable. The word reasonable adjustments, employers sometimes turn around and say, it's not reasonable. Paul, that's not reasonable. Well, that's where you need to go back to them and say, it's unreasonable for you to refuse it. It really is unreasonable for you to refuse it. Because let's face it, if I looked at some of the employers I deal with, so one employer, their annual income is £444 million. Okay? It's not a lot, I know, but £444 million. And they've argued that actually they can't give a disabled person an automatic car. All right? Sorry? What? So I went to go see the boss, and I says, you're telling me out of an annual income of £444 million, You can't purchase an automatic car to allow one of your staff members to go out and do the job that you want them to do. That's ridiculous. Lucky for me, it was a public sector organisation, and I was able to say to them, look, you've got a public sector ecology duty placed on you. Otherwise, I shall see you in court. Guess what they did? What colour car would you like? Okay? So yes, the word reasonable gets bandied around quite a lot. The things that I would like all of you to consider though, and this is me giving you a little golden nugget. Reasonable adjustments that you should be asking for. Stress risk assessment. This is a method widely used now across many sectors. Is it fair to say the journey that everyone has been on in this room has been stressful? Yes, Paul, it has. It has been stressful. So therefore, the stress that you are going through in your home life does bleed over into your work life. And your employer has a duty to maintain your health, safety and well-being. We'll come on to that in a minute. So stress risk assessments is a way of your line manager looking at the stresses that you are dealing with within the work, recognising the stresses you're dealing with within home, and then they can adjust the levels of work that they're giving to you. Really, really powerful. Once it's done, if you transfer from one place to another, you can take it with you and show them. All right? For those employees that are lucky enough to have an occupational health department, please get involved with them as soon as possible. Ask for a referral. Now, members often say to me, Paul, I'm a bit suspicious about the occupational health because they work for the employer. No. They're paid by the employer, but they don't work for the employer. Their role is about looking after your occupational health. And their job is about writing down what the employer should do, must do, or can do to support you in doing your work. They are recommendations. And the employer can look at them and say, yeah, thanks occupational health, but we're not going to do any of that. The employer can decide whether they want to do it or not. What I find is that I go to the employer and say, occupational health have given all these recommendations and you've chosen to ignore them. That means that you have taken a conscious decision not to support an individual who falls under the Equality Act. And I use that as a leverage point to saying, guess what, we're going to court. So if you can, do so. If you work for an employer where they haven't got an occupational health department, then get the support through your GP. Okay? This is a great one. Wellbeing passport. Now, in the good old days, we used to call it disabled passport. But like I said earlier on, it's not my place or anyone else's place to say that we are disabled. Okay? So we changed the word into wellbeing passport. Wellbeing passport is a document that you complete. And I can offer a template, and I'll speak to Joe and the team. We'll probably get a template set up whereby you put down there how you feel in a good moment in time, how you feel in an average moment in time, and how you feel in a real crap moment in time. And we do that because if you have got that written down, you can then give it to your line manager and say, this is how I'm feeling in a real bad moment in time. We don't say on a bad day because the condition that we have can fluctuate all in one day, can't it? So in a good moment in time, average moment in time, bad moment in time. And by understanding how your employer can support you during a bad moment in time, that helps them in getting the best out of you. It also removes the need for you to keep explaining constantly to new line managers and new employers all the time. Oh, this is what I've got. This is how it impacts on me. Because that can be draining. It's only draining for me. So these are brilliant. Wellbeing passport. Hello, I'm your new employee, but I come with a passport. This is how you can help me. And another thing you want to be asking for is a personal emergency evacuation plan. Now, I don't know how many people here over the last 2 days have walked into something or knocked something over or end up bumping into someone, but I can actually count. So I've bumped into 3 people. I've kicked a load of glasses down the hallway because I simply didn't see them, all right? So if I can't see them and I'm bumping into people, clearly, in the event of emergency like we had the other night, for those people that had to evacuate, do you remember we had to evacuate, jump out? we should all have a personal emergency evacuation plan, because if you work in a two-rise building, in the event of an emergency, who's going to get you out? Yeah? I'm right, aren't I? By law. By law. You've got to do that. If you work with computers, you've got to have a DSE assessment, display screen equipment. So health and safety, make it work for you. Now, this here is the, this is my Uncle Paddy, okay? And this is my Uncle Mick, all right? Brilliant fellas, brilliant fellas. So, and you can tell Mick went and got the brains. So, Uncle Paddy, not so much. Yeah, the brilliant fellas. Yeah, they always make health and safety work for them. Oddly enough, they actually went for a job as a tree fella, but there was only two of them, so they didn't get it. So, and this is them building a health and safety office at the local council. So, yeah, great. Health and safety. Okay, warning. Some law stuff here now. So, Section 2, Health and Safety at Work Act. HASWA. Okay. That is the foundation of what it means for health and safety. If you are in a workplace, you are covered under the Health and Safety at Work Act, Section 2. And Section 2, subsection 1, mandates that every employer must ensure, as reasonably practical, the health, safety and welfare. Health, safety, welfare. They are the golden three nuggets. Health, safety, welfare of all their employees while at work. This is a duty. It's mandated by law. They have to do it. So maintaining your health. So if you're working a good display screen, they've got to do a DSE assessment. If you're using DSE equipment, they've got to send you for an eye test and should pay for it because you're using it on a regular basis. So you should be maintaining your health. Safety, you've got to make sure the ceiling doesn't fall on you. You've got to make sure the ramps are there. You've got to make sure there's a handrail. Okay, you've got to make sure that when the lights go off, the steps glow up. Welfare, I love this, welfare. That goes back to the stress. So if your employer is not looking after your stress levels, they are failing in their duty under Section 2, Section 1. And you can take them to court for it. Okay, a stress risk protocol. Section 2, subsection 3 says that they should confirm all this with you. Now, how many people within your workplace, as soon as you walk through the door, there should be a nice glossy picture from the HSE that says, this is what you should do in the event of a fire. This is what you should do if you need first aid. This is your nominated first aider. They have to do that by law. So if you are in employment and there isn't a poster by the HSE, guess what? They're breaking the law. And if they're breaking the law there, where else are they breaking the law? If they don't comply with it, it could actually lead to criminal prosecution or an improvement notice. This is my wife's best friend, Mel. She's got a great beard, so you just can't see it. Whenever I'm engaging with people, I often say, think Mel. So a lot of the job that I do is about negotiating, trying to bargain, trying to reason with employers. And the best way of doing it is by using Mel's approach. So morally, is it right? Is it right what the employer is doing? I'll give you an example. I've got one individual that has got a real bugbear with their line manager. Line manager's not interested in their condition. No, it's really stone-faced. And so all they've asked for is a new line manager. That would be morally right, wouldn't it? No, they didn't do it. No, not having a different line manager. Economically, what is it going to cost? That's not going to cost anything, is it? Now, an employer might turn around and say, we can't give you reasonable adjustments because it's going to cost too much. Okay, right, so an automatic car for an organisation, £444 million per year, you're telling me an automatic car, you know, is beyond economic reach? Nonsense. And then finally, L, legally. Is it right what they're doing? Because if it isn't, then there's only one place we're going, and that's court. So MEL, use MEL as much as you possibly can. So this is Bob. You probably recognise Bob. Bob was diagnosed back in 2015 and had an inoculation, but he's doing well. Okay. Bob's helping me out with summary. And in summary, that is obtain your contract of employment and your employer's sickness or capability policies and any handbook. Make sure to get all the medical reports you possibly can. Make sure it's written down. Not written down, never happened, remember that. And where possible, make sure that evidence you get states that you are likely to fall under the Equality Act. Because if a medical practitioner registered with the GMC has said that you are likely to fall under the Equality Act, you can't expect a line manager that hasn't even done a first aid at work course to turn around and say, actually, you're not. Okay? It's really important. This is probably the most important one. Do not rush back to work. Take the time to get better. It's really important to get better. I want everyone to be here next year and the year on. Do expect to receive a call from your employer, as this is standard practice, and we've already talked about that. But don't panic, all right? It's just a process. We'll go into the process, that's fine. If you're invited to a capability meeting, make sure you take someone with you, that supportive friend, either a workplace colleague, or if you're lucky enough to have a trade union rep as wonderful as me, and a fine fellow over there, then we'll go along with you, okay? And request reasonable adjustments that you may need, making sure they're put in place as soon as possible. The reason why I've put that in there is because the amount of employees that have turned around and said, yeah, we'll give you reasonable adjustments. And then 6 months later, the members come back to me and say, when am I getting these reasonable adjustments? The Equality Act, that wonderful Equality Act says they should be put in place in a timely manner. Timely manner to me is 2 weeks. If it's beyond 2 weeks, I want to know the reason why it's not 2 weeks. If it's a month, well, we're getting a bit dodgy here. 6 months, that's not reasonable. Guess where we're going? See you in court. Okay? And if it all fails, refer to MEL. Talked a lot. I'm already over my minutes. But I just want to say thanks very much for listening. And remember, you are all awesome and you know it.